at some point in this matchup if he's going to want to take it. He does still have some decent matchups. Both Warlock and Warrior are pretty good matchups for the mid-range hunter, so he shouldn't have a tough time taking it against either of those, considering it's a Reno Warlock instead of a Zoo Warlock.
Right. It's really all about setting up a little bit of an earlier kill than they have to set up their combo damage. And Reno, it's somewhat of a 50-50. Do they have Reno? Do they not have Reno? But even after that, you still usually have the damage to push through.
I actually played probably like 20 games of mid-range hunter like just 2 days ago, and the amount of times that I was playing against a Reno Warlock and they played Reno, but I still killed them like over the next 2 turns was absolutely absurd. I mean, usually around the time that you're putting on enough pressure, ideally would be around turn 6 or turn 7 for them to like feel pressure enough to Reno for the threat of kill command or quick shot or things like that. And then you just call the wild, or you just slam face with the Savannah High main. Like, that 30 damage comes very quickly when you're playing that deck.
Yes, it does. And against any of those Renolux, did you happen to run into Bane of Doom?
No, I did not. Why do you ask, Bob?
Well, I asked because Gallon's deck happens to have a Bane of Doom in it.
Wow. Well, that's a card that we haven't seen in a while. The pool of demons has gotten slightly smaller.
A little bit.
Mal'Ganis, I think. No.
Void Caller, too.
Void Caller, that's right, that's right. I was thinking there's one more. I almost blurted out Fell Cannon, but then I was like, nope, it's gone, but it's a mech.
Tiny Knight of Evil, that's still in there?
Tiny Knight of Evil, yeah. Tiny Knight of Evil still in there, yeah.
So a few bad things, but ultimately you can get Jiraxis, you can get Pit Lord, and we don't see that often. Doomguard.
Dread Infernal.
Dread Infernal. Felguard.
Yeah.
All really great options from that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Mistress of Pain might be gone as well, but I'm not quite sure. But a little bit of an interesting deck, and Gallon sort of has just a few... well, the interesting choice there, and of course the interesting choice to bring Raging Worgen for that one-turn kill deck. But we're going to jump into the next match, and lo and behold, it is Reno Warlock versus this mid-range hunter. And PNC, like I said, has to be feeling pretty confident about this, but there are ways for Warlocks... Reno Warlocks to get in this matchup, and one of those ways is by having an early board.
And it looks like Gallon is setting up here for that exact early board. He's got the Peddler, he's got the Earthen Ring, and optionally does have the Brand, which is sometimes a really nice pairing with Dark Peddler. In this case, of course, when you're against Hunter, it might be a little too greedy.
Yeah. Here's another choice that Gallon has decided to put in his deck that's a little bit interesting, that's not quite common. That's the Alexstrasza.
Alexstrasza, of course, is in there to set up lethal damage with your Leroy combo down the road. It lets you get there a lot easier without having to get that chip damage in over and over again from your minions in the early game.
Yeah, there are some defensive options that you can use with it. A lot of the times it replaces Jiraxis. I think there are some control matchups where Jiraxis is better. More looking at sort of Control Warrior, where you actually absolutely need those extra threats. But there's a lot of matchups where Alexstrasza's quite a bit better.
Well, the jig is up. There is a mind control deck, and it is not. It's not in his hand, so no worries about having 4 minions on the board just yet.
Yeah.
Now, Dark Peddler going down here. We do not see his options right now, but a lot of good options could be present there. Maybe even a Shifter Xeris. We've seen that once today, or once yesterday, actually.
Yeah. So it's Soulfire, Abusive Sergeant, and Angry Chicken. Those are the 3 options. I'm not psychic. I was just told those options.
Well, you might pick the Angry Chicken just to roast it with the Hellfire later, get a few wings from it, enjoy a lovely dinner, but I doubt that's going to be the pick.
Yeah.
Gallon's not hungry this time around. He's picking the Soulfire.
Yeah, and Soulfire in this deck has a few different uses. One being, and probably the main one, judging by the matchup, is to just take out some 4-mana minions. Maybe like a Misha, or even just using it to maybe clear off a Hound Mastered 2-drop is a big thing that a lot of times Renolux struggle with outside of Shadow Bolt, so definitely some use.
All right, so which minion do you take out here? Do you take out the Death Rattle right away, prevent it from hitting one of your minions coming up here, or do you take out the other one? He's choosing to take out the Death Rattle, take the extra damage to the face, potential extra damage to the face, and get that Earthen Ring Farseer out there, healing back the damage he took.
Yeah. So this is, you don't really want a Freezing Trap and Earthen Ring Farseer, but at the same time, you really want to play on curve. And how often is the 3 health from the Freezing Trap Earthen Ring Farseer going to matter when he has to spend 5 mana to use it this time, which could be an entire turn in this mid game.
That freezing trap actually work against him a lot here because that Mountain Giant will suddenly be reduced to 4 cost next turn, allowing it to be played. So that freezing trap, there's a lot much more things to worry about here than the Earthen Ring Farseer getting another heal. But that is certainly, working against his normal game plan, which is to be putting that pressure on, get the first Reno or no Reno, and then finish him off.
Yeah. He's trying to think, though, exactly what's going to be the right play.
He could freezing trap and then just kill the Earthen Ring Farseer, too.
He could, yeah.
I bet that's what's going through his head right now. Do I get that extra face damage in, or do I send it back?
But then your opponent also gets to sort of choose what minion they want to have freezing trap. I mean, it's not guaranteed since PNC could have removal, but I mean, Refreshment Vendor is effectively going to do the same thing.
Yes.
I mean, it's going to be 6 mana for a 4 health heal. The heal for PNC won't effectively matter until probably the very end of the game, if it comes to that. And now PNC is just left in a little bit of an awkward situation again. Stampeding Kodo is, I mean, it is a 3/5. It will match the body of the Refreshment Vendor pretty well, but there are some minions in this deck from Gallon that PNC can hit with the Stampeding Kodo. Imp Gang Boss included, which is one of the main ones.
Right, Imp Gang Boss, Brand, Bronzebeard, and Doomsayer potentially later, but I doubt the Doomsayer is too much of a threat, and without another play, it looks like he's just going to go ahead and choose to throw that out there and deal with the extra 4 healing later.
Yeah, it's probably a smart choice. Even though there are some targets, you can't wait around forever for those targets to happen, and Reno Warlock is one of the decks that has the least amount. Defender of Argus is also another one that it could have killed.
Now, Gallon's probably going to drop this Mountain Giant here so he can start the march towards lethal against his opponent. And the Defender of Argus is going to be a very great card to pair with that. No Black Knights in this particular Hunter deck, although we have seen one list with that in it. Freezing Trap, taking out the Refreshment Vendor, and making the Mountain Giant even cheaper.
Yeah, that's some pretty heads-up sequencing there from Gallon, realizing that he can actually fit in a tap, and with the Freezing Trap, still be able to play the Mountain Giant. Now, of course, this is one of those situations where knowing all 30 cards in your opponent's deck is a pretty big deal because in the past, that could have been Explosive Trap and that would have been awkward.
Exactly. It might have even been a Snake Trap. Who knows?
Who knows?
But now we do know. And yeah, Deadly Shot coming out here, and goodbye Mountain Giant. We knew you such a short time. And now we're hitting that point where Reno Lock can start to run into some more difficult choices here. He can play 2 3-drops here, not expecting to see 4 minions on the board and steal them, but he really just needs that to protect the board right now.
Yeah. We're coming up on the power turn from PNC. And the thing about Call of the Wild is, even by itself on an empty board, it's fantastic. But if you have a board in play, even a small board in play, it's just so powerful. Leok buffing up the minions that you already have. Misha protecting some crucial minions that you might have on the board. It is kind of risky sometimes against Reno Lock because you would be susceptible to like a Shadow Flame on a big target. But, I mean, still, you're not really using many resources. You're using a single card to do all those things.
So it's time to set up the Twisting Nether coming up, and I think the Siphon Soul is looking pretty strong here at the moment. You're going to heal a little bit. You're going to take care of the first part of that high main. Ultimately, that hopefully will get you somewhere. Now, Hellfire instead is going to be a slightly better way to deal with that. You can save the Soulfire for potentially bigger minion, and Demon Wrath even to clear the rest of the board. So you're using 2 cards here, but you know that Twisting Nether, it's going to be more valuable later on.
That's a lot of resources used. I guess Gallon is just a little bit afraid. He doesn't have Reno Jackson yet, and if Call of the Wild were to come out with stuff on the board, even if it was just 2 of those 2/2 hyenas, that's an extra 6 damage. All of a sudden you're looking at 9 instead of the 5 that normally comes from just Call of the Wild. So a little bit afraid. And now Twisting Nether doesn't seem that powerful. Now it's just trading off these minions on the board. He might feel like he can get away with maybe even like develop a minion plus Soulfire, but it looks like Siphon Soul is going to be the option.
So Siphon Soul is the play where you're thinking, hey, if he has another Call of the Wild and I Twisting Nether now, I'm done.
Yeah.
But if he does have the other Call of the Wild, We see he doesn't have the other Call of the Wild, so we know he's pretty safe. That's a pretty risky Soulfire. If he had discarded the Twisting Nether there, then that second Call of the Wild would have been crazy. Ooh, Stranglethorn Tiger, another spicy choice for your Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter deck.
I've been experimenting a lot. A lot of times players either opt for double Stampeding Kodo, which is really great in faster metas, or one Stampeding Kodo, one Stranglethorn Tiger, which is much better in faster metas and actual control-oriented metas. And this is sort of the situation you find yourself in when you're playing against, when you're a mid-range hunter as Arena Lock. You either have your heals or you have your AoEs. It's rare that you have both of them. And so he found himself in a situation where he had the AoE but not the heals. So now he's got to sort of fight back while knowing that he doesn't have Reno Jackson. So all this damage is going to stick until he draws into it.
Taunting up Sylvanas, preventing a lot of face damage here. So Gallon is probably feeling pretty protected. He still has the refreshment vendor he froze earlier, and PNC knows that. So now PNC's got to make that decision. Do I unleash the hounds after killing the Sylvanas for a single hound so that this quick shot will draw me more cards and hopefully find me the way to finish this game before my opponent draws Reno Jackson?
Yeah, what the Unleash the Hounds could also do is allow PNC to preserve the Flame Juggler, because he could trade in one of the Hounds, and if the Hound gets stolen, he has a stronger board moving forward. Also, he could do that, and after he kills a Sylvanas, Animal Companion, and Leok would make him get a clean trade as well onto the Defender Vargas. So
looks like PNC didn't have the time to do all sorts of math, or maybe he finished just in time. He is going to draw that card, and he's not going to have a lot of time to play any kind of follow-up card to this. Just going to use his hero power and end the turn quickly before that rope burns out.
Ooh, grub.
Well, looks like he wouldn't have been able to play that anyway.
Nope, not quite. But anything gets him closer to the second Power of the Wild. Ooh, a Soulfire.
Man, two Soulfires here. One that's actually in the Reno Lock deck, which is not a traditional add to Reno Lock either. Looks like Refreshment Vendor going to go down, though, and the Soulfire, fingers crossed, not going to discard that Twisting Nether.
All right. And he gets the Spellbreaker, which isn't that big of a deal, but it could deal with Savannah Hyman in the second quick shot.
That is perfect pickup right now. It's going to give him just a little bit of extra reach here. Draw into the Eagle Horn. Man, so now he's set up for lethal even without his minions on board next turn.
Yeah, so Gallon, for him, it's effectively Reno Jackson or bust. I don't think he has any healing left in the deck. Maybe a Cult Apothecary. Looking at his list right now, he doesn't have it. There's a Bane of Doom in that 5-mana slot instead of it. And does he pick it up?
Not this time.
But Ooze, unfortunately, that's not going to be enough since he is at 2 health.
Interestingly enough, he actually would have been able to prevent lethal had that Ooze come before the Doomsayer and not been able to play. But that is going to be game number 2. And we're having a very interesting series here, TJ.
Yeah. These are the kind of series that I like. I like to see new decks. Midrange Hunter is a deck that sort of just got popular. I mean, Mr. Yagut took it to top 10 legend on Europe. And since then, players have been experimenting with it and realizing that in a control meta, it's super powerful. Unfortunately, it feels like control metas are on the way out because players also in this tournament experimented with aggressive lineups that had mild success, but I think once they're refined, will have immense amounts of success.
Right, aggro, that aggro change here when we went to NA from EU, it's not been working out for a lot of players in the overall lineup sense, but it has been working out in a few options in there. Just have a few that can punish, maybe pick up that game against one of those greedier control decks in your opponent's lineup, and maybe ban out one of those kind of tricky decks to get through in aggro.
Yeah, very true. And so now we have 2 decks remaining for both players, the Rogue and the Warrior for PNC, of course Tempo Warrior plus Miracle Rogue, and then the Reno Warlock, which we just saw, and of course the Worgen Warrior for Gallon, which I'm incredibly excited to see. The thing about it is it has to go up against a Tempo Warrior or a Rogue. And both of those decks are tough because Rogue sort of does not a similar thing, but they do it in like a stronger way. I don't know if it's not a great way to put it, but what I'm trying to say is they have a lot more early game minions to fight in order for them to draw into that miracle sort of stage.
All right, well, it is going to be a warrior match here. Who will have the biggest armor at the end of this game, or any remaining armor, I suppose? We will find out soon. Now, knowing each other's deck list is going to play a lot into the mulligan strategy here. Gallon going to look for just ways to deal with those early card draw minions. He needs to wipe all the minions off his opponent's board before those battle rages become early card draw engines. PNC going to, or actually I have this reversed here. But PNC, he's going to be looking for those, and Gallon's going to be looking for those card draw engines, which is why he kept the slam in this case.
And card draw engines he will find. Reason being is because unlike some other combo decks or combo-oriented decks or miracle decks, whatever you want to call them, effectively, Worgen one-turn kill warrior is either cycle, removal, or it's part of the combo. There's nothing in between. There's no utility minions or anything like that. The only one I can think of that might be utility minion would be Armorsmith. But everything else is just removal or draw. Like, that's the whole deck.
Yeah, and the Armorsmith's still working towards the same goal, which is survive long enough so that all those cycles get you there. Harrison Jones, an interesting tech choice as well, because Harrison Jones lets you draw more cards and beat up other warrior decks. So that might come into play here too. We notice he doesn't just play the Raging Ghoul as a tempo play here. He wants to save it to try to activate other cards.
Yeah.
Now, here we go. It's time to start cycling, Gallon says, and out goes Gnomish Inventor, a basic card, of course, so again, everyone has access to this card.
Yeah.
And Battle Rage coming up for PNC. Great thing about his hand right now is that wonderful Kokron Elite. He, again, needs to keep his opponent's board clear of minions. That way, he doesn't end up getting those big Battle Rage turns. Blood to Ichor also works for the same facet and also damages his minion, hopefully activating his own Battle Rage.
Yeah. So I actually made a slight mistake earlier in the intro when I said the total damage from the Raging Worgen combo was 36. It's actually 32. For some reason in my brain I thought that charge was 3 attack, but it's +2 attack. So effectively the deck goes Raging Worgen, Inner Rage, which brings the Raging Worgen up to 6. 2 from the Inner Rage and 1 from its innate Enrage. Charge brings it up to 8, and also gives a charge. So that's 16, and then Faceless Manipulator just basically doubles that. So 32 total damage for the combo.
And if anything can survive 32 damage, it is another warrior.
Yes.
So armor up going to be very relevant in this matchup. Now, Battle Rage here actually looking a little bit good, since he knows that Worgen, it's not coming for a little while. I need to have a lot of mana to get Worgen out. Now, he does have those pieces in his hand, though, with the Emperor. But Battle Rage might be his only chance to find ways to stop it.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. The thing about this deck, though, from PNC, the Temple Warrior deck, is it doesn't work towards building up large totals of armor. So maybe he can try and change the game plan, but by doing that, he completely negates much of his normal game plan, which is just trying to pressure. And I think going for pressure as opposed to going for large armor totals is going to be the way to win this matchup. But Gallon already has Raging Worgen, charge, and, well, Inner Rage doesn't really matter, but that means he can fit in a Faceless Manipulator. So that's all he's looking for, and he can do it as early as turn 9, as long as his opponent is not above 32 health.
That's just how crazy this deck is. Now, a Slam, of course, going to go out here. Looks like PNC is going to end up using that cycle, trying to find out, hey, what can I do here? And put on a little more pressure with the Enrage here. What can I do about a Raging Worgen coming up? I know he used Emperor now, so he must have a lot of those pieces in hand.
Yeah, he must have at least 2. And I talked about it earlier. People will oftentimes forget about this. You only need 4 cards for the combo, and you only need to reduce 2 of them, since the total cost, actually only 1 if you want to do it on turn 10, because the total cost of the combo is only 11 mana.
Yep, that is correct. Now, here's some more cycle. Loot Hoarder. More ways to draw more cards, so the pressure has to continue, and Frothing Berserker is one of the best cards to do that with. He's going to use his Battle Rage now, draw those 2 cards, try to find a way to, again, just block this Worgen damage, because he knows that Execute's coming around, and hey, with 4 taunts in the deck, he might actually be able to stop it.
Gallon spends his whole time thinking, oh, I hope it doesn't go above 32. Well, he's above 32. Time to concede. No. 2 armor ups. That's too difficult for me. It's time to stop. He's going to go ahead and brawl here. He has 2 in hand, which is probably why it's a decent play. He was hoping not to see Frothing Berserker come out of this, though. This might force him to use a Slam into Execute rather than just an Execute here. That Slam might have been useful later, but again, cycle, still looking for that Faceless Manipulator. Maybe this is the better option. Yeah. Slam, removal, and draw, sort of Oh, Rag.
And Execute just went down. Now Rag is much more likely to stick to this board.
Yeah. Rag definitely a strong card against these matchups that really want time, because Rag is hard to remove and it doesn't really give you much time. Oh, there's the Face Manipulator. He's 2 damage.
Oh.
But the thing is, how does he fit in 2 damage? He needs a Fiery War Axe is exactly what he needs, because that would allow him to do the extra damage over the course of a couple turns. So there was a turn earlier where PNC decided to, instead of using double Battle Rage, he fitted an Armor Up. If he had not fit in that Armor Up and got greedy and used the second Battle Rage, he would have been dead that turn.
All right, well, PNC not really, he doesn't really have a way to deal with much of this on the board. He's not really worried about the armor gain by his opponent. He does want to finish the game quickly. It's more about, I really want Rag to hit something valuable here. So do you execute one of these, go for a 50-50? I don't really think so. I think it's time to start building up a bigger board.
Yeah. And Fierce Monkey would still block that combo. Or, you know, just an Armor Up would block that combo as well. So we'll see what PNC decides to fit in. The Execute just seems a little weird. I don't think you'd want to use an Execute on something like this. But you know the deck. You know the biggest minion that you could possibly execute is already gone. It's Emperor Thorson.
Right, and the second biggest, Harrison Jones, you know, he doesn't really have a whole lot of health.
All right, well, he goes for it. I mean, he realizes that, you know, that exact situation. What else is he going to use Execute?
4 health, a pretty good way to deal with it. Now he's going to put out the Fierce Monkey. This is going to once again block the damage here. Ragnaros is going to throw his damage at the face.
All right, well, Gallon still probably looking for a Fiery War Axe is going to be the big thing here.
So he's got the Brawl. And the Brawl, you know, it's got a really good chance to take it out. It's a 50-50 to take out both Rag and the Monkey, and that's what he's looking to do here. And unfortunately, Rag is what's left. Faceless could take it out, but then you lose your combo, and you can't put your combo away. So it looks like he's going to play Harrison and hope that another shot goes face, because pretty much that's his only hope at this point.
Yeah, even if the shot goes face, as long as PNC armors up next turn, even if Harrison gets in an attack, he won't have enough. So he's going to have to just say, you know what, no more combo. It's time to Faceless. And hope this Rag can hit the other Rag.
Oh, to the face it goes. Oh, man, it's a Rag off.
Yeah, but PNC has the ultimate trump card in the Rag off, which is Varian Rin, which has the potential to summon 3 additional minions onto the board, not including itself. So let's see if you can get it. There's 1. There's 2.
And Execute. Well, that'll be useful a little bit later.
Yeah.
Now the Rag fires into the other Rag. That pretty much eliminates Gallon's entire ability to finish out this game. There's just not enough to do here. So he's going to go ahead and show the Worgen.
PNC is wincing. He's like, wait a second.
I want you to know what I have.
there's no Faceless Manipulator. What could he possibly do? And PNC realizes that he is now 1 game away from going to the Spring Championship.
That raised eyebrow at the end, like, wait, did I look at that deck list correctly?
Yeah, a slight moment of panic. So, but, you know, well played by PNC. You know, those types of matches are matches that if you're the player playing against the sort of Miracle deck, you don't really know what's happening. You're sort of just killing his small, weak minions and, like, I wonder what he's going to do. It's sort of unintuitive, but the small amounts of decisions that he did have to make, not using the second Battle Rage, make sure he fit in armor ups when he could. Those are the types of things that make the difference. And there was a small situation where PNC could have lost the game, but those couple decisions early on that he made ended up being the difference.
Ended up being exactly 2 armor ahead, and that's literally just 1 armor up. So, yeah, it's just like you said, weave in the hero power when you can. Just the Rogue remaining here. With that win, he'll close out the series, so...
Watch.
Big deal. All right, well...